All right, everybody, welcome back into Cherry Picking. Today's video, we finally get into the mock drafts. Maybe you've already done your drafts, or your drafts are, coming up. NHL season's like probably about 8 days away now. Apart from that first game, obviously, the real regular season about 8 parts away. But NHL mock draft here, 14-man league. I'm going to be drafting from the 2 spot in a Yahoo league. Pretty generic roster setup here. Let's see what the roster kind of comes out with from that 2 spot. Try to give you guys some advice if you're drafting around that area and see what we can do. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Shout out to FanDuel for sponsoring the video. Download. That app is in the description below. Let's get into the video. All right. Number 2 spot here. We have a auto drafter, it appears, at number 1. So he's obviously going to be going with McDavid. At this number 2 spot, I think there's obviously a couple directions you can go. I'm going to be going with Draisaitl here. I know. I'll wait for the comments. I know I'm going to get shit on for that opinion there, but hear me out. Like I think Matthews this year, obviously almost a 70-goal season last year. I can't see him recreating that. The shot totals for Matthews and McKinnon will always probably be higher than Draisaitl, but I think Draisaitl 200, what he was at last year is something that we can get back to, or higher this year. Like 217 shots for Leon Draisaitl is insane. I think the numbers will certainly bump up. He's going to have more skill on his line, whether it's Arvidsson or Jeff Skinner. Arvidsson's definitely a guy that can help Draisaitl get goals, and I think we see him get back to what we saw in the power play from 2 years ago. McKinnon coming into this year, you could argue you could take him at 2. I'm fine with that. Just the workhorse of the team. He's going to put up 1 million shots. Will he be able to recreate what he did last year? That was obviously an incredible season by him, 51 goals. We've never seen him score at that rate before. Can he do it again? We've seen Draisaitl do it. I think last year was a down year, and this year we'll see him kind of perform better. I'm going to draft Leon Draisaitl at number 2. Okay, so center and left winger capabilities too. You got to remember that. It's kind of important. Let's see where Yahoo has next. Yeah, I would love to get Gensel in my next spot if I could. That would be fantastic. Looking at who these guys got. So we went Draisaitl and Kucherov 3, and then McKinnon 4. Can't go wrong with the top 6. It's really up to personal preference or how you're going to do your draft. If you end up getting Cale Makar in the first round, you can load up on forwards after that, because that is such a help. If you watch my strategy for this one, I'll be going for defensemen a little bit later, unless somehow one randomly pops to me where these are being picked. But I do believe the best case scenario here is going to be loading up on some forwards. I think here I can go, hopefully Gensel. I think he's really the main guy I'd want here. If not, Bouchard, and then Ottinger or Shesterkin. I really like Ottinger for Vezina this year, especially betting value-wise. I think he has a really good price. I think Dallas's defense is top-notch. I think obviously you lose a little bit with Tanev. He was a huge piece to really bolstering up defensive stats, and it's hard to say Igor Shesterkin and Saros are going to have worse years than Jake Ottinger. It's kind of a crapshoot at this point, but I think Dallas is a team that's going to contend for the President's Trophy. I think Jake Ottinger is going to have a much better year than he did the year before. We saw what he did prior to that. Got Siri going off here for some reason. Let's see how this draft has gone out. So Matthews went 5. That's kind of surprising. I think I would take Matthews before McKinnon. I think Matthews, honestly, this year, this could be Matthews' Selke year. He was 3rd in voting last year with the captain stitched onto his jersey now. Maybe he takes in a little bit more of a defensive role. I think that's where the Leafs probably need the most help. I think they have a ton of guys who can score. So I'm interested to see if Berube has any sort of effect on that. Elias Peterson, that's going to be a really interesting one. A guy last year who led the NHL in on-ice 5-on-5 shooting percentage, which means anytime he was on the ice, the Canucks were scoring. Usually that doesn't translate year to year every so consistently. He is an extremely high-skilled player. But one of the biggest things a lot of people talked about with Vancouver last year was the fact that their PDO number was so high. Their team save percentage and team shooting percentage throughout the first half of the year was incredibly high. And they're top 3 in the NHL by the end of the season as well, but it definitely balanced out a little bit more. So I think that's something kind of to worry about. In this 12 spot, if I have 11 or 12, I'm taking Kirill over Panarin for sure. Pettersson for sure. Not Makar. Yossi, yes. I know Yossi is so dependable, but you got to think there's so many other guys on this Nashville team now with Marchessault, Stamkos, Brady Shea. Like, I think it's going to be hard for Josi to burden as much of a load that he did in years prior in terms of the amount of points he scored, his usage that he had. So that's something to keep in mind as well. These guys are picking so slow. I think we got a lot of auto drafters here, but just some guys that are still around. Quinn Hughes is still here. That's not shocking. Don't know if I'd want Crosby at 18. It's a little high for my liking. Like, it's crazy to me how I think people are like, yeah, I'll take Kucherov at 3, but then the guy he's gonna be passing to score a majority of these goals is gonna be Jake Gensel, and he's going in the 3rd round. Hopefully I can get him. Kyle Connor would be an interesting one this year. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Before he got hurt last year, he was having an insane year. Obviously some really good goalie options. The first crop of D, I would say, are Hughes, Makar, and Josi. Hedman used to be there. He's not anymore. Fox, too. I think people are starting to kind of not giving up on Fox, but maybe just not as high on him as they have been in years past. Bouchard, obviously, being that new shiny toy. Don't say I don't want Bouchard, but that's depending a lot on an Oilers team who is going to be very good. Don't get me wrong. If I end up going for Bouchard here, if Gensel goes, oh, well, there, Evan Bouchard just got taken. Never mind. There goes Braden Point. Mitch Marner. Come on. Gensel. You want Gensel to fall for me here? I want my decision to be made for me here a little bit earlier. Easier for goalies, but Eichel, Forsberg. Don't do it. Don't do it, Elliott. Shesterkin, amazing. Jake Gensel, this is going to be his 50-goal year. Next to Kucherov, Stamkos did it. Gensel is an incredible talent. Incredible goal-scoring ability. I think this is his best line he'll ever play on with Crosby. He played on with Crosby. That's a good point. But Kucherov's up there for sure. I mean, he just gets so many points. All right, so I got lucky. Like, the computer took Swayman there. But I'm going to go with Ottinger, as I mentioned. I love the defense he's playing in front of. The team is so deep. They're going to score so many goals, win a ton of games, and I think he's going to have a much easier role this year than he did last year. So Ottinger. So that's a pretty good solid start here. I like Draisaitl, Gensel, and then Ottinger. Some other options that are here at this point, like Stamkos, definitely interesting. Definitely would like be interested in picking that. Obviously, you got to think of who he's played with for the past couple of years. Played with Kucherov, played with Braden Point. Does play with Marchessault, who's coming off a career high. Marchessault is up there in age, like Stamkos is. And then the center is an inexperienced Tommy Novak at this point, because they already have that first line of Ryan O'Reilly, Forsberg, and Nyquist. I don't think Brunette's going to try to muck up that line at all. So that is definitely something to consider. Jason Robertson falling this far, too, is kind of criminal. Could also be taking Robertson at my spot. I talked a lot of praise about Dallas. He deserves some credit as well. I think he's very underrated, especially in the defensive end. Looking at his wins above replacement in the defensive zone for forwards would surprise you, I think. So this is interesting too. Like, at this point, I could look for some defense at my next pick. You know, I'm right around. What pick would that be again now? 50, 55. So right now it's, Morrissey, good option. Dahlin, I like Dahlin. Just being named the captain too. We talked about Fox. Would be a discount to get him there, but do I want him there? I don't know. If any players in this area here fall to me, like Wyatt Johnston, even if Vasilevsky drops to me, you got to think this is a bounce back year, right? This is his worst year ever last year, and he just got taken. There you go. Every time we talk about someone, taken. Like even Bedard Zibanejad, I don't know who I'd rather have there. Eriksson Ek, I've talked about in my must-draft centers list. I've been a huge fan of him, especially fantasy-wise. Like, he just does everything. Having him and Draisaitl as my two centers would be a solid 1-2 punch. And then getting someone late to kind of complement those two guys. But that is Draisaitl, and then you're making up for the shots there with the lack of shots that Draisaitl had last year. But I think he'll be able to recoup that, and those numbers will bounce back. All right, So let's see what we have here. After a couple picks, Fox went, Bedard went, Svechnikov went, Tage Thompson went, Stützle went. Stützle last year, I don't know if you guys remember, he was going so high in drafts. Obviously, I think this is where he should be going. But I remember last year seeing in like Matt Larkin's fantasy hockey ranks, he was inside the top 20. And I know he had a lot of potential breakout at that year with his age and, what have happened the year prior to that. But I know I just didn't see it. And the Ottawa team, too, they just can't get out of their own way, it seems like, in terms of management, coaching. But maybe this year is different because that roster is stacked. So we still have Wyatt Johnston here, too. Obviously, last year, outstanding season, 32 goals. I think this year you could see a 40-goal season for Wyatt Johnston. He'd be a guy I'd be looking at taking at this spot right here if he's available. Eric Sinek, another guy. Bobrovsky, I think I'm avoiding. They lost some pieces on D. He started the most games out of any goalie over the last 4 seasons because Florida's has played so many fucking playoff games. I'm avoiding him. I would take Morrissey if I could here. I don't have a D yet, so that would be pretty smart. Do you have Charlie McAvoy in terms of D? Dobson. Fuck. Dobson would also be a good pick. But am I taking Dobson over Morrissey? I might. In the Patrick Waugh-led team, he likes to activate his defensemen. It's a fast-paced team. Dobson could score more goals this year, not just being an assist merchant. He shoots the puck a decent amount, or he used to. Okay, who do we have here? Okay, we have Wyatt Johnston and Eric Sinek. I'm going to go Eric Sinek just because I really like Minnesota this year, and this is a tough one. I mean, if you look at the hits, too, like, he's going to get way more hits. I don't necessarily have the physicality on my team. I'm going to go with Eric Sinek. And then we have Morrissey here. We have McAvoy, and we have Dobson. I'm going Dobson. I think the upside, a little bit younger. I think there's a little bit left to be known with this team at this point. I'm going Dobson. All right, so Noah Dobson pick there. As I mentioned, I think this new style under Patrick Waugh is really going to help guys like Noah Dobson. And then I've talked about it in previous videos with guys like Anthony Duclair, Matt Barzal. Those guys are going to be flying down the wings because, as I mentioned, Patrick Waugh activates his defensemen, them breaking out the play, having winners absolutely fly. And then, the whole play pushes up. As last year, they were a little bit more defensive, a little bit more wait and see. Patrick Waugh is a lot more aggressive. Obviously, could open some opportunities on the other end. But we're just talking fantasy hockey. We're talking scoring here. And I think Dobson is a guy that will flourish. I don't know about Morrissey as much as I would like Dobson on my team, to be honest, right now. Looking at the players that are available at this point, Marchessault is there. As I mentioned, man, Jonathan Marchessault, this is an interesting case because obviously he had an incredible year last year, 42 goals, but 33 years old, playing with Stamkos and Novak, 3 guys that obviously have never played together before. How's that chemistry going to be built? Maybe it's going to be really good. Maybe it's going to be really bad. I think obviously everyone expects it to be really good. I expect there's no way Jonathan Marchessault is scoring more than 42 goals this year. I would be floored, to be honest, if that actually does happen. Okay, so looking at our team right now. So 2 centers, Gensel, Dobson, and a goalie. Probably, depending on where this falls. I've talked about him. Line I just went down. I think I'll probably go Cole Caulfield next. Going Cole Caulfield next, I'll probably go with either another defenseman or goalie after that. I've talked about it before. Caulfield's in a very interesting territory last year. You could see his name highlighted. He is the first player since Jack Eichel in 2018-19 to have 300-plus shots but less than 30 goals. Jack Eichel, the year after that, had career highs in goals and shooting percentage. There's been players who have done it before. Evander Kane did it. Next year, career high in goals, or tied his career high in goals with 30. It was his highest goal per game season as well. And then I believe the other person that had done it prior to that was Patrice Bergeron, but he's a kind of player that would consistently do that because he shoots the puck a ton. So that's something to think about here. And I think I'm going to go with Cole Caulfield unless he just got picked. He did get picked. Shit. Okay. We pivot. Jacob Markstrom. I think this is a place where he's wanted to be for probably almost a year now. I think he's wanted to be here since the deadline. Devils have had a horrible team save percentage over the last couple seasons. Will that change this year with new coach, new defense? You bring in a guy like Brendan Dillon, you bring in a guy like Brett Pesce, who's hurt right now, but will be back at some point here in the near future. You have two young defensemen in Nemec and Luke Hughes, along with Dougie Hamilton coming back, guys like Jonas Siegenthaler as well. I think Markstrom could really flourish on this Devils team. Definitely a guy I would look at to have as my second goalie. That's an absolute steal. Robert Thomas, I think, is a very good player, but I don't need another center. And see, this spot for D, I do not like. I do not like at all. Like, I don't really need to reach on any of these guys yet. Carlson's also a really good option. There's a really good crop of defense like here that I would be fine with taking. Jake Sanderson down here. I would go with I think if I'm picking right now, I'd go with Markstrom. And then I'd be looking down here, maybe an Alex Tuck. I think Buffalo's going to have a resurgence here on the offensive side of things. Boldy's also a really interesting option. All right, we're going to go with Markstrom. And then I would love to take Slav, but I can't have both of them on my team. I think that's poor management. Where do we go here, chat? It'd be either Boldy or DeBrincat. I think I'm going to go Boldy, despite the injury issues. I'm going with Boldy. I think he plays on a better team, and I think the Wild, their power play was unreal last year. 5-on-5, one of the better teams. I think they're going to really contend this year of Boldy if he can please be healthy. Just be healthy, please. All right, so looking at the squad right now, we've got Draisaitl, Joel Eriksson, Jake Gensel, Matt Boldy, Noah Dobson, Jake Ottinger, Jacob Markstrom's. Pretty solid team for a 14-team roster. I've got the defense open here. We're going to be looking at D. A bunch just went. Devin Taves went. Brock Faber just went. Slavkovsky went. DeBrincat went. I'm looking Harley, maybe John Carlson. Sergachev in Utah could be an interesting option. Is coming off an injury, but okay, there goes Carlson, Natchez, Lafreniere. Yeah, I would look at, and then honestly, Sanderson would be my next pick, and I'm gonna reach on him because I think he's gonna be unbelievable. He's like 120-1 for the Norris this year. That is worth a sprinkle. That is worth a couple of your dollars, 100%. He's playing power play 1 this year. I don't think it's going to be Shabbat. I think Shabbat lost it last year when he was hurt, unfortunately, and I think Jake Sanderson's one of the best skaters in the NHL, top 5 in terms of speed and just fluidity as well. And I think he's going to show a lot of people this year who don't have him on notice. He's one of the guys who he'll put you on alert very quickly, I think. So, all right. So I think, honestly, what do I need? Is Thomas Harley going to have another 15 goals this year? I bet you have more shots. His shooting percentage was really high last year. I do remember that. Your turn is next. Here we go. Vince Dunn. Shea Theodore just went. Should I go? I'm going to go Harley. Thomas Harley and Ottinger together. Here we go. Game on. Thomas Harley draft. Okay. And then you know what? We're going with Byfield. And we will take Sanderson next after that. Byfield this year. LA no longer playing the 1-3-1 neutral zone trap. I think this team is going to score. They were good at scoring goals last year, creating offense at least. Like a team that over the last 2 years has been top 7, I want to say, in expected goals for, like throughout every stretch of the season. I think this year you're just going to see a lot more firepower. I think you're going to see a team with a much higher shooting percentage, a team that hasn't had a high shooting percentage for a couple of years now. And I think Byfield's going to be a beneficiary of that. I think we're going to see. I've heard some people say that Byfield's going to be on this year's Team Canada team in terms of like the Six Nations tournament, which is wild to predict right now. But I mean, he has the size and like someone who could turn into one of the best players in the NHL. We've seen him score those highlight reel goals. We'll see. Continuing to play with Andrei Kopitar, not playing with Andrei Kopitar, centering his own line now with Kevin Fiala and Warren Fogle, I believe. So you see how that turns out. Him not having the babysitter playing with Kopitar, and Kempe Laferriere gets that honor this year. So that'll be interesting to see. And Jake Sanderson has been drafted. That is very unfortunate. So now I'm going to have to be looking somewhere else. Fuck. Honestly, I think I'd rather have Jake Sanderson than Thomas Harley. Fucked myself there. Quinn Byfield might have still been there as well. That's okay. Okay. Let's see here. We need these. We need defensemen. Like, it's as simple as that. We could Chikrin. Morgan. Honestly, Morgan Riley this year is a really interesting option. He was, like, throughout the entire season, I want to say, top 15 in terms of fantasy hockey defenseman. Playing probably with 10 of this year. That alleviates a lot of pressure on him from all the critics and the crap he gets for maybe being too offensive sometimes or making dumb mistakes, because Tanev will definitely be able to bail him out. You also have Gustav Forsling here, who just broke out, was unbelievable in that playoff run for the Panthers. Can he do the same thing this year? I think he could. I don't think who it matters who he's playing with. Like, he's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. The Panthers got him on an absolute discount. If you saw the deal that he signed, obviously, in the offseason. So Forsling, I think I'm going to go for Forsling here if I can get that. And then it comes down to who are you taking next. I think going Forsling Riley, honestly, is good here. There's going to be right wingers that are going to be available. Oh, God, there's so many defensemen going. Please, come on. Please, don't do it to me. Don't do it, Elliot. Don't do it, Elliot. Good job, Elliot. Oh, someone took Morgan Riley. There's some defensemen down there that are appealing. I really do not. None of these interest me. And I just auto-drafted Jerry McCann. Awesome. Bonehead mistake there. I was lost in the sauce. Lost in the sauce. Can't have that. Jerry McCann, welcome to the squad. All right, so we have a D to fill and 3 bench spots. I'm going to get a D, another D to replace that D when that D's not playing, a goalie, and 1 more forward. So, as I mentioned, there are some defensemen down here we're going to be looking at. Luke Hughes. I mean, I have Dougie Hamilton, right? No, Dawson. Could look at Luke Hughes. There's some other interesting ones. Bowen Byram. Dahlin's back, like that injury that had in preseason could have been a big factor, but maybe not as much. Dursey, obviously, a guy who's had a good year in LA, went to Arizona, was starting off pretty decent, but then kind of fell off. Lane Hudson, you're taking the risk on him playing on that power play. I don't know how much 5-on-5 time he's going to get at this point. Campus Lindholm down here, like, it's pretty thin in terms of who you want to add. And this is a point in the draft where you're like, do you kind of go for someone? Look how many goddamn centers there are left. Holy shit. Stankoven. Yeah, like centers are just irrelevant. Here are a couple of guys I've talked about in terms of forwards. You have Victor Arvidsson, obviously on the Oilers now. Could be playing on that line with Draisaitl. Taking him could be risky, but also could pay off as a sweet little stack with Draisaitl. Tom Wilson, I talked about bouncing back. A guy last year who had one of the lowest 5-on-5 on-ice shooting percentages. That generally turns out to be pretty positive for that player in the following season. A perfect example of that was Trevor Moore a year ago. And look at the year he had this year, or just this past season, was definitely a breakout. Paterka down here as well is another good option. A lot of people aren't higher on him, and a lot of guys on Buffalo this year to bounce back, considering how poorly they were offensively. After Tage Thompson has a 40-goal season, Jeff Skinner had one of his best years ever in terms of points production-wise. So I still don't know what I'm going to do here. Okay, so what do we have in terms of defense? We have Forsling, Harley, and Dobson. Points, shots, plus, minus, block. We're not doing blocks. So hits, maybe we need a guy with hit. Maybe a Matt Roy is a guy that I could look at. Neil Pionk, too. I do like Neil Pionk. Sean Walker or Orlov. Sean Walker or Orlov. Like, Sean Walker last year had a great year on Philly and then obviously moved to Colorado. Can he do the same thing on this Carolina team? Like, maybe. I'm going to go with Sean Walker. No, I'm going to go with Orlov. He's played in the system a little bit longer. I'm going with Dmitry Orlov. Okay, what about goalies? Ingram? No, that's a fade. Okay, we might have missed the boat on goalies too. Jesus Christ, what an absolute chop job. Actually, no, we're going to go with Korpisalo because Jeremy Swayman will not be playing to start the season. We know that. Now we need some forwards and another defenseman. Nearing our pick here again, I'm going to be eyeing Tom Wilson here. As I mentioned before, I'm taking Tom Wilson, need a right winger. Bang, fill him in. That's some hits and shots and some goals. Now we need another defenseman or a forward. Shit. Defenseman. Why not Owen Power? He's a guy, you know, he could have a big year this year. All right, looking at the guys that are left in terms of centers, you have Strome. I think he could have a good year this year playing. If he plays on the same line with Ovechkin and Tom Wilson, I think he'd have a very, very good year. Celebrini, guy, I think him and Stankoven obviously called their options. Dylan Cousins, I've talked a lot about having a bounce back year. Charlie Coyle, would not put a lot of stock in that. Leo Carlsson, I think so. Obviously, they preserved him last year on this like weird game schedule that they had for him. I don't think that'll be the case this year. Cutter Gauthier, obviously, at the bottom there, too. Another rookie that you could be drafting late in drafts to kind of wait and see. Dylan Guenther's a guy on Utah, obviously not a rookie. There's Michkov kind of appearing there as well. He's a guy that you could take a late flyer on, too. Who would I want the most out of all these guys that are currently right in front of me? Probably Dylan Cousins, because he's done it before. The most upside out of these guys, probably Michkov. You just don't know with Torts, but if Torts doesn't fuck with his ice time and stuff like that, he could easily have 60 points. He has 6 points already in the preseason in 3 games. It's completely different, obviously. It's the preseason. Don't want to overvalue that, but still, that's something you have to note. Looking further down here, Barrett Hayton, I think he's due for a breakout year. Obviously, last year dealt with injuries, but I think leaving Arizona and going to Utah, I think is just a better option for a lot of people here. Everyone on this team, really. Pavel Zacha, again, not going to be high on him. Aiden Hill, him and Samsonov, are they doing a weird split? Aiden Hill should be the starter. Tyler Seguin, Mason McTavish, Matty Beniers, Marchenko with Columbus. How do I see that? Obviously, that line last year, Marchenko, Voronkov, and Chinnikov was very good. But how will they be able to create the same kind of offense this season? Will Fantilli be mixed in with those 3 guys? Will they keep it completely the same? We'll see. Okay, so who's going to be my pick here? Probably Cousins. Or we need, I guess, another winger too, but we do have some guys that are able to do a bunch there. Velarde's also a good option. Probably playing on the first line with Scheifele and Connor. All right, and it's my pick. Someone took Tarasenko. That's shit. I am going to go, for the fun of this, so let's go with Leo Carlsson. All right. The squad, team, let's see it quickly. Nope. Draft results. Ryan. All right. Draisaitl, first pick. Eriksson Ek. Gensel is my second round pick. Boldy, Byfield, Tom Wilson, Noah Dobson, Harley, Gustav Forsling, Orlov. McCann was an auto draft, unfortunately. Owen Power. Leo Carlsson as my last pick. And then my 3 goalies, Ottinger, Markstrom, and Korpisalo. It's a pretty solid team. Don't love it, but I definitely love my early selections. I thought I did those pretty well. Byfield, getting him at a pretty decent price where I drafted him. Wilson, I think, is a good guy you could take a flyer on. Will still be able to contribute in other factors if he's not scoring on certain nights. So yeah, pretty solid team. That is drafting out of the 2 spot. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll do drafting out of a different position. Shout out to FanDuel Canada for sponsoring the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.